Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller film, Botched. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with the thief executing a heist during an auction. The thief steals diamonds from a vault inside an isolated room and places the diamonds inside a briefcase. Then the thief leaves quickly, pretending to be wealthy bidders to blend in the crowd. Outside the mansion, a getaway driver starts the car, and the thief and his accomplice leave the venue. Unfortunately, their car crashes onto a wall upon returning to their base, killing the getaway driver and accomplice. The thief manages to survive, escaping the vehicle immediately with the briefcase. As the thief flees, he collides with an upcoming car. All the diamonds sprinkle on the road. The thief stands up to retrieve the briefcase, but it's hopeless to gather stolen diamonds back, so he leaves without the diamonds. The thief meets up with his boss. He is upset with the thief's botched work. The boss reminds the thief that he saved him and his mother from Russia, bringing him to America 20 years ago, which means the thief is indebted to the boss. So he blames the thief for the failed mission. The boss gives another chance to the thief. He needs to steal a cross relic in Moscow that once belonged to the late Ivan the Terrible. The cross is safe on the penthouse floor of a luxurious apartment building. The thief arrives in Moscow the following day. He meets his new Russian accomplices, Peter and Yuri, who are brothers. In the morning at the apartment, the three thieves enter the elevator. Once alone, the thief kills off the CCTV in the elevator panel compartment. After switching off the CCTV, the three thieves enter the penthouse room, but Peter murders the lady guarding the cross. Afterward, they enter the elevator after successfully stealing the relic. Yuri cries while covering his clothes blood-stained because he believes killing the lady is unnecessary. But Peter degrades his softness to a stranger. Meanwhile, three Christians board the elevator. Peter asks them to leave, but none of the Christians go. While Peter repeatedly asks them to leave, the junior vice president, the journalist, the watchman, and the employee hurriedly enter the elevator. Peter has no choice but keep quiet. Suddenly, the elevator gets stuck on the unfinished floor 13 upon waiting to reach the ground floor. The junior vice president asks the watchman to call for backup, and the walkie-talkie reports the murder of the killed lady in the penthouse. Out of conscience, Yuri immediately exposes Peter as the murderer. Peter quickly withdraws his shotgun, threatening all the hostages. The elevator door opens, and the employee quickly escapes. The thief chases him while Peter lines up the hostages in the hallway. Suddenly, the JVP phone rings, and Peter commands everyone to bring out their phones. He stomps on them to destroy any communication devices, while warning them not to do anything crazy. The thief retrieves the employee quickly and returns him to the line of hostages. The thief talks to Peter, believing the cops have already tracked their crime. The thief then notices Yuri is still in the elevator, saying he does not want to get caught. Then he brings out his stock sandwich and eats it. Eventually, the three thieves relocate to lock the hostages in a room. After that, Peter clarifies the stuck elevator situation. He asks if the CCTVs are down, how come security stops the lift. The thief rebuts if he did not shoot the lady in the penthouse, maybe they will not get caught. Amidst talking, Peter notices his brother is not around again. He enters the room where they lock the hostages and finds his brother eating a sandwich. Peter expresses his frustration at his brother's idiocracy and slaps his sandwich away. Suddenly, a walkie-talkie that Peter confiscated from the watchman earlier speaks, looking for the watchman. Peter immediately grabs the walkie-talkie, but the thief asks him to let him do the talking. However, Peter is so stubborn as to insult the caller when Yuri attacks his elder brother out of nowhere and the thief steals away the walkie-talkie. The thief ignores the brothers fighting and negotiates with the caller to give one hostage in the meantime. The caller agrees and will wait for a hostage in the elevator. The brothers finish their fight with an apology, and Peter locks his brother in the locked room with the hostages. Peter afterward asks the caller's situation, and the thief informs him of the plan. The two thieves enter the locked room to ask any volunteer to join the police outside, and the employee and the journalist quickly raise their hands. But the thief chooses the employee. Before leaving, the thief advises Peter to keep his gun to himself and prevent more casualties. Peter escorts the employee to the elevator. The employee stands in front, and the elevator door opens when suddenly a giant pair of scissors appears, beheading the employee. Meanwhile, inside the locked room, the journalist is upset about losing the chance to get out of the floor immediately. He believes he is a liability to be kept a hostage. He introduces himself to the JVP, whom he thinks of as his secretary. At the far corner of the room, the three Christians, Sonia, Helena, and Katerina, pray while holding their holy book. Sonia suddenly stands and invites Yuri, who is sad about his wasted sandwich and the murder of the lady. Sonia takes advantage of Yuri's somberness and asks him to join their prayers. Peter arrives while holding the decapitated head of the employee. The thief accuses Peter of the murder, but he defends himself, saying the cops did it because his clothes should be bloody if he did. Peter explains what happened at the elevator, but the thief doubts him. The thief calls the caller, and to his surprise, the caller apologizes for the tragedy struck on the employee and asks for a woman hostage in 10 minutes. But the thief decides not to give anyone. While the thief is away, Peter checks the relic in its case. Then a rat suddenly chews onto the decapitated head, and Peter scatters it away. Back to the thief in the hallway, he examines the hallway. Along with his investigation, he stumbles upon a display of head skin stitched together. He touches them and realizes it's human skin. The thief returns to their temporary base to talk to Peter. He informs him there is a problem. The hostages ask about the employee, but Peter lies, saying the employee is safe. In contrast to what they see, a rat escaping with the employee's decapitated head behind the two thieves. Eventually, the two thieves exit the room, leaving behind the hostages. Inside the locked room, the watchman introduces himself as a retired soldier who experiences war in foreign countries. He sees himself as an alpha male. He promises the hostages that he can get them out alive. Meanwhile, the thief shows the skin display to Peter. He explains that the caller and the one who kills the employee are the same, not the cops. Because if cops are in the vicinity, there should be sirens ringing outside the building. Back to the hostages, they plan to attack the two thieves who will enter the room. The watchman and the journalist will push the heavy filing cabinet toward the two thieves. The JVP brings out her nail file as a weapon. Afterward, the JVP screams for help as part of the plan. The two thieves rush to the room, but the journalist suddenly bails on their agenda, leaving the watchman alone pushing the cabinet. The two thieves arrive, and the watchman fails to move the cabinet. Yuri exposes the trap, which causes Peter to hit the watchman on the head with his shotgun. Peter gives a gun to his brother and reclaims him from the three Christians to leave. But the thief tells Peter they cannot leave. While the two thieves converse, Sonia borrows the gun from Yuri and shoots Peter in the stomach. Blood gushes out and they watch him die. The whole situation turns into an unexpected twist. The three Christians with Yuri overtake the hostages and the thief, telling everyone that all that is happening is part of the Almighty's plan. Sonia commands everyone to pray. Then they hear a howling outside the room, which the thief explains is the problem. Eventually, the three Christians with Yuri exit the room, locking away the thief and the rest of the hostages. Sonia and her followers stroll the hallway, while telling them not to be afraid because the Almighty will protect them. Sonia leaves her followers to check the howling noise, and when she returns, she tells her followers to make a sacrifice. In the locked room, the thief reveals the killer who pretends to be a cop in the walkie-talkie and the one who stops the elevator. Then Sonia arrives with her followers to claim another hostage as a sacrifice. Sonia commands Yuri to tie the journalist on a chair in front of the elevator. The journalist quivers in fear while staring at the pool of blood. Meanwhile, the JVP convinces Katerina, guarding the locked door outside, to let them out. Unfortunately, the killer appears behind Katerina, trying to hit her, but instead whacks the door's lock. They exit the room and find Katerina gone, and the only thing left is the shotgun on the floor. The thief equips himself with the gun as they decide to explore the hallway for a way out. The journalist, tied in front of the elevator, witnesses the killer dancing while chasing Katerina away. The killer strikes Katerina in the head with his flail. Katerina falls to the ground and the killer drags her away. Eventually, the thief and the hostages save the journalist. The thief tries to operate the elevator panel on the wall when suddenly a shutter falls, locking the elevator door behind. The journalist panics because he thinks they are going to die together. The thief suggests they need to open the shutters to access the elevator, and the hostages follow him. Soon after, the Christians return to the room and discover the hostages escaping already. In frustration, Sonia searches for Katerina, the one she assigns to guard the door. While searching, Sonia and her followers stumble upon Katerina dying on the floor. Despite Katerina's poor situation, Sonia only shouts at her, asking what happened. Sonia leaves her alone on the floor and continues to search for the hostages. Unfortunately, Sonia catches them entering a room. She and the thief withdraw their guns and point at one another. The thief fires the weapon, but it's empty. Sonia shoots one, but misses them. The thief, the JVP, and the watchman run to their right, while the journalist separates to the left. The journalist hides inside a control room, where he finds a radio to contact the security and surveillance monitors lined up. The journalist reaches the security, which blatantly shows no care at all, leaving the journalist devastated. He smashes the radio, and when he tries to relax on the chair, a long, sharp sword erects, almost cutting off his balls. The journalist leaves the room with no trousers and fortunately meets the thief and other hostages again. Suddenly, a howling noise echoes in the hallway, and they immediately enter the first room they find open. To their surprise, they stumble upon a bedroom. The thief and the hostages find weapons and stitched human skins plastered on the wall with painted names and an oath about the Almighty. The thief and the JVP read the pledge, while the watchman and the journalist open the fridge. The fridge opens only to show human organs hidden inside. Right then, a large intestine falls onto the journalist, staining himself with blood. Out of frustration, he grabs the cleaver on the nearby counter and grits his teeth. They discover that the killer and Sonia are twins, and the relic is part of their obsession with their family cult. Later, Sonia brings Yuri to their lair to meet her brother, the killer. On the altar is a corpse. Yuri asks if the killer is God, but the killer answers he is the devil. Yuri runs away out of fear, and the killer chases him. The killer pushes Yuri onto a spiked trap built on the floor during the chase, killing him instantly. The killer brings the corpse to the lair to offer the corpse, but the killer performs an unruly act of self-pleasure while praying, which angers Sonia. She then commands the killer brother to find another body to offer. Meanwhile, the thief and the hostages converse about the stolen relic from the family in the killer's bedroom. Unfortunately, while arguing whether to return the relic, they discover Peter double-crossed the thief by stealing the cross for himself. So the thief decides to retrieve the cross back along with the JVP. In comparison, the watchman and the journalist choose to set a trap for the killer. The thief and the JVP leave the bedroom, and outside the hallway, they promise each other they will leave the building alive together. Unfortunately, the killer suddenly attacks them for a new body to sacrifice. Luckily, the thief shoots the killer at the foot, which causes the killer to limp away. However, the killer impales JVP ear onto the wall with a knife. Left with no choice, the thief pulls the JVP from the blade to save her. Soon after, the thief and the JVP find the control room. The thief operates on the computer to open the shutter. Afterward, he destroys the computer to prevent the killer from knowing their movements. Outside, they follow the trail of blood leading to the room they first gathered earlier. Upon arriving, the thief finds Peter gone. The JVP convinces the thief to leave the cross alone, but he explains to JVP that he will meet death if he leaves without the cross. Meanwhile, the watchman and the journalist test their trap, with the cleaver being attached above the door and waiting to be triggered to fall down. The journalist lures the killer to the room, but disappointment washes over them when the killer opens the door, and the cleaver does not fall. Instead, the journalist continues to run away, but he traps himself onto a rope. The rope pulls him to the ceiling, hanging him upside down. The watchman follows the journalist's scream, and when he arrives, the journalist is dead. However, Sonia appears behind him, knocking him down. In the lair, Sonia straps the watchman's body in preparation for sacrifice. The killer, who recently placed the Russian robber's body beside the altar, wants to kill the watchman, but Sonia commands him to leave, which the killer does. Sonia is about to kill the watchman when Helena quiveringly inquires what they are doing. Suddenly, the watchman throws a plate of blood onto Sonia and frees himself. The watchman points his claimed weapon to the two Christians while slowly leaving the room. Afterward, the thief and the JVP arrive in the lair, but the killer shouts echo nearby. So, they hide behind the curtain, but only to see a dozen corpses hanging on hooks. The JVP restrains her shock because the killer is outside, retrieving the cross from Peter's body. The thief gives her a calm tongue massage to calm her down. When the killer leaves, the thief searches for the cross, but it's gone. To their surprise, Peter is still alive and stabs the thief on the stomach. Peter stands, grabs the shotgun on the ground, and looks for his brother's corpse. In return, he searches for the killer to avenge his brother. Meanwhile, the watchman brings the two Christians to the room where his cleaver trap is set. Unfortunately, Sonia outsmarts him by asking him to close the door. The cleaver falls, cutting off his left hand. The watchman tries to shoot Sonia, but he shoots Helena instead. Sonia escapes the room with the gun she retrieved from the watchman's cut-off hand. The watchman then burns his own hand while chanting he is an alpha male. After the fiasco, the thief, the JVP, the watchman, and Peter stand off with the killer in the intersection hallway. The killer first engages the watchman, but he falls to the ground. The killer then encounters Peter and impales him after he tries to shoot him with the unloaded shotgun. Afterward, the thief attacks the killer and retrieves the relic hidden inside his clothes, but the killer pushes them to the ground. Luckily, the watchman traps the killer on his own spiked traps, giving the thief and the JVP time to escape. In front of the elevator, the thief successfully revives the elevator again. However, Sonia knocks out the JVP from behind. The thief and Sonia wrestle when the JVP regains consciousness and kills Sonia with her nail file. From afar, the killer spots his twin dead on the floor. The thief inflames the dead rat and throws it towards the killer, engulfing him in a fire. The elevator opens, the JVP quickly grabs the relic before the elevator door closes and boards inside with the thief. The movie ends with the security watching the surveillance of two employees copulating when suddenly corpses in the lair with the killer fall from the ceiling. The security rushes to the crime scene to catch the criminal. As for the thief, he receives handsome compensation for finishing the work. Then he furiously confronts the boss for keeping an essential detail in the job. It turns out the boss is the brother of the killer and Sonia, who is even proud when he learns the thief killed them both. The boss leaves, and so does the thief of the JVP to Los Angeles. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.